right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Deals for Dentists podcast. And today we have Jim Gerson, and he is from CareStack. CareStack is an all-in-one practice management solution. It's a cloud-based unified suite of dental practice management solutions for growing practices. And you can go to Deals for Dentists and you can target CareStack's promo. You get 20% off implementation fees, free subscription for the first month, and no long-term contracts. Well, welcome aboard, Jim. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you got it, Eric. And just one thing I want to clarify about our deal for your members is the it's like a taxi cab, but the meter isn't starting until you're live. So
Okay.
we're not going to charge you while you're getting on board and everything else. So just want to be clear with everyone there. So if it takes you 20 days, 30 days, 60 days to get on board with CareStack, that first month starts once you go live. So even better value for your membership. Thanks for allowing me to clarify that.
And are you located in, are you near Orlando? And I also saw, do you have an office in India?
We do. So CareStack was founded. Do you mind if I speak this for like 45 seconds, if that's all right?
Go for it.
Yeah, so CareStack was founded by Dr. Mark Husak. He's a board certified orthodontist with a 3-location group called Celebration Dental. And their first office is in Kissimmee, Florida, just outside of Disney World. And Eric, he caters mainly to Disney employees. And so 3 locations, these are 70 chair practice, among the 3 practices. So large practices, multidisciplinary. And the company was founded by him and by a technologist named Abhi Krishna back in 2014. And they were in the realization that there wasn't a software that was designed and built for practices that wanted to kind of centralize functions, claims management, appointment scheduling, that whole process. You had to run every business as a separate kind of silo. And they went out there and they went to the marketplace and they couldn't find a solution. So they got together, did the first round of funding with family and friends back in 2015. And we fast forward to 2020, we're over 250 employees between the US in Kissimmee, Florida. And then our main development and engineering hub is in India. Mm-hmm. And really important to mention for everyone, we're in about 850 practices now. And we just closed a round of funding for $28.5 million in September of 2019. So we're really well suited for the next period of our growth. Hope I stay within my 45 seconds or so. Thank you.
Well, I just can't stop picturing, like Mickey Mouse sitting in the dental chair, with his, the big, shoes hanging off the end of the chair and with the high squeaky voice. So I want you to just kind of tell me about your journey, how you got involved with CareStack, what CareStack is and how it helps dentists.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I think the way we help, let's start with helping dentists. We're completely client-centric at solving pain. That's what it comes down to for our practices. And a lot of our clients have come to us and said, we're really suffering from software subscription fatigue. We manage 6, 5, maybe 7 software subscriptions in our office. And when business was robust and doing gangbusters, we would add on additional subscriptions and it wasn't a big deal. It didn't really matter that much. And then obviously we're kind of in this, transitionary period in our country and in our economy. And a lot of these offices have reevaluated how many software subscriptions they have and what's really necessary. I guess the best parallel is think about how you bought, home phone, cellular phone, cable, and internet 10 years ago. You might have had 4 providers, Eric, for all 4 of those services. Now most Americans have one service provider for all 4. And that's the way dental practices are starting to think is, why can't I have a unified solution? I'm suffering from software subscription fatigue. Another issue for growing practices is the closet full of servers, cables, and wires. They frankly don't want to deal with the HIPAA and PCI compliance issues that are related to housing your own technology. And so we've had a lot of practices come to us and say, we want to remove that from being an on-premise issue, right? And you've seen companies like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Salesforce, touting the cloud. And really, dentistry is the last frontier in medicine where you as a proprietor, as a business owner, are expected to host your own IT infrastructure. So a lot of clients come to us and say, we want to end that. We don't want to have that liability of keeping that on premise, and we want to move to the cloud. So those are kind of like two pain points that we solve and address. And that's really the focus of CareStack. It's not to sell bells and whistles that we do all these things, even though we do. It's to take away the pain points for practices. I hope that resonates. I'm sure it does with your members. I know in our earlier conversations it kind of made sense, but it's all around finding solutions to pain points.
Yeah, well, it resonates, with even me in my practice. I mean, we have so many third party softwares, and you don't know. I mean, they probably all do the same thing, and they all dabble into a little bit of a crossover. And I mean, we have monthly subscriptions up the wazoo that it's just it all adds up. But I just wanted to go back to cloud based. Is that
Sure.
I mean, is it safe? Is it secure? I know I feel fine with it. I do all my banking. It's all cloud based. I do it on my phone. I have my account with Netflix
Right.
and Amazon, and my credit card is everywhere. And it. What about with HIPAA compliance and all the patient data? Should dental offices be concerned about cloud based, or is it totally secure?
Yeah, I want to be careful and saying totally secure. I'll give you some. I think it's very secure, but I'm biased. I work for CareStack, and I want that's an important disclaimer, right? But CareStack's data is your information is your data. By the way, when you come or you go with CareStack, it's always your data. You always retain access to it. But it's hosted in Microsoft Azure's HIPAA compliant cloud, and we have redundant instances. And I personally feel, and I think a lot of experts feel, that the cloud is safer than on-premise. And
Mhm.
why is that the case? Because the security protocols are much more rigorous for Microsoft than they are for the individual dental practice. A great example is if someone on your staff accidentally opens up an email, a PDF with an attachment, and that has ransomware. And by the way, dentists are one of the top 10 targets for ransomware. And Eric, the reason is that they pay the ransom. A
Mhm.
lot of it has to do with reputation and shame. So dentists don't want to have public shame. So they pay the ransom for Bitcoin and things like that, to cyber hackers. So the great thing about CareStack is that we have multi-factor authentication, which people are familiar with. You can limit the times that employees can access your your data. You can limit who sees it. You have all these different permissions and controls. And then the beautiful thing of it is, just think about it. It's browser based. You're running CareStack out of a Chrome browser. So the example I gave you about opening the email attachment and now your network is infected, nothing resides in your network. There is no server you don't need a server with CareStack. So that's another thing I want to speak to. It's all behind, the security of running things in the cloud. And you're right. As consumers, we do everything in the cloud. We buy from Amazon every day, right? You mentioned using your bank's website. So I hope that speaks to that. But again, confer with your local IT person. Go to the people that you trust to get the information from them. Don't just listen to me. I am biased. I work for CareStack.
And with a cloud-based software, you could also have staff working remotely, correct? Where you don't have to be on site.
That's right. But it's permission based, Eric. So let's
Mhm.
say you've got Joe at the front desk and you don't want Joe to see your ledger. You just want him to handle scheduling and things of that nature. And you can put blinders on Joe so he only has access to what you want him to see. And let's say you want Joe only to be able to access it, from 9 to 6 and no weekends. You can control that too as well. You can also limit Joe's access so he can only do it from your ISP address in your dental practice. So I just want to give people the comfort that because it's cloud based, you can give them as much latitude as you like, or you can make it as narrow as you like as well. That kind of flexibility, if that makes sense.
Now, where the name CareStack from? I'm just going to throw a guess out there because I don't know. But
Sure.
are you stacking different, I guess, programs all into one? Like, you go to
You got it.
Denny's,
That's right.
you get the
That's
big
right.
stack of pancakes, and it's all there.
That's the concept, right? That we have one cloud-based solution for the complete management of the dental practice. And you're right. So we're stacking up solutions. I'll give you an example. We talked to a two location practice last week that had their legacy practice management software, and then their patient reminders were in a completely separate system. Now, even though these two talk to each other, they only sync up once per day. So a patient confirms their appointments. It's possible that the practice doesn't know about that until it syncs at the end of the day. It's not real time.
Mhm.
So they're still calling these patients and saying, "Hey, Are you coming in today? Are you going to be here? And they're saying, what are you talking about? I confirmed on my text message. So for them, it's embarrassing. They're calling the patient. They don't seem like that the practice clinically and the office staff is talking, even though they're very thorough and they're doing their job. And so even though they have these solutions with a legacy system and their bolt-on reminder, like you kind of put it, they're stacking up. They're not designed to communicate in real time. So that's a pain point that we resolve because our communications are real time. So a patient confirms an appointment, it shows up on your schedule as confirmed that instant. Online appointment booking, by the way, during the lockdown, practices before the lockdown probably were more reluctant to offer online appointment booking. That's changed mainly because most of our patients in dental practices have said, I'm ordering my food online, I'm doing my car service online. I want to book my dental appointment online. Same thing with CareStack is that we tie into your website, and when patients book real time, it updates real time on your end.
Okay, so you have online appointment booking. So the patient can go in, and I'm assuming you can set specific controls over the schedule into when and where a
Right.
patient can schedule.
So let's use your practice. I know you do a fair amount of implant dentistry, right? So let's say you have like a full arch Friday. Maybe this is a reality, and you have from 9 to 1 scheduled for full arch cases. You don't want your patient to go on and book their emergency or their cleaning in that middle of that window, right? Even because you've templated or you've allocated for implant cases. And so you can set those guardrails up in CareStack. And then it reads back to your patients see on their end only what you want them to see. So you have the ability. It's not like that's a big fear for dentists, and it makes a lot of sense to us at CareStack that you still want to have control over the schedule. So that can be controlled and configured on your end. Does that kind of answer
Oh,
your question?
yep. So you have the online scheduling, and then it's a full encompassing practice management software. So you have the schedule, all the patient financing on there, um, and I heard you mention when we previously talked that you had teledentistry. Is that something that has been extremely popular because of the quarantine and COVID situation?
It has. Do you mind if we just kind of can I improv here and share my screen for just a
Yeah.
brief moment? You just got to change me to the host because I want to share a quick illustration of what's available in the CareStack. I think this is a great place to kind of show. If that's all right, tell me when you're ready, and I can just share my screen.
Yep. See if I can figure this out.
I think you need to make me host, but the answer is yeah, we have a fully comprehensive solution, and teledentistry was certainly popular back in April and May. Eric, as you mentioned, like when offices were closed, and certainly like in Massachusetts as an example. Hopefully, we won't get to that situation again where dental offices close. Great, thank you. But there's a reality that we could be headed there, and it depends, right? And or you might have a patient that doesn't want to come into the dental practice. So if I can just focus on this for a moment, if that's okay, and I just want to really spend time on the left-hand side. This
Mm-hmm.
is the value proposition of CareStack, is that we also offer all this functionality in the left-hand side. So like, for example, something that became very important, Eric, since offices reopened, is patients using the car as a waiting room,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so CareStack allows that. That's the final piece in the appointment confirmation process, is they can wait in their car and you could automatically push them text messages. Teledentistry is now part of the solution. So these are things that we introduced back in April at the response of our clients. And being a technology company, we respond to the client requests because we want to make a product that's more robust and comprehensive for the client base, and we rely on the feedback. One thing I do want to note, unlike other companies, when we release new technology, it just becomes part of our stack. Like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, we don't charge an auxiliary fee for it. So curbside check-in, teledentistry, and text to pay were the 3 features that we released as practices reopened, and none of those were added as a supplemental charge.
Okay, so you just keep on adding to this wheel here. It looks like you just keep stacking on more and more functionality. Now, do you call each one of these a functionality, a widget, a software, or an app, or what do you call each one of these?
Yeah, so they're just innate within CareStack. We like to call them
Hmm.
like functionality, I think is the best way to put it, or a
Hmm.
widget, I guess, is the best way to mention it. But they're all accessible. Um, so with CareStack, you're really going to get the benefit if you want to use all these things, right? I think one to mention to your members, a potential downside to CareStack is that you're going to get all these things, and if you don't use them, you're just paying for functionality you're not using, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
A
I'm
great
looking at
example is
about
yeah, sorry. If I,
I'm looking at about like 6 or 7 of these that I pay extra for, that aren't included with Dentrix. Um, and so right there, you're saving by having it all in one platform. Go ahead, I cut you off. What were we saying?
no, not at all. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for speaking to that. The big piece too, as well, is the cost of a server. And this is where it might make an enemy with your IT person locally, right? A
Hmm.
server is somewhere between a $7,000 and $9,000 investment every 5 years. So, if you amortize that or you look at that as an annual basis, that's about $130 a month for a dental practice. And you don't need a server to run CareStack. You could use it with network storage device if you
Hmm.
wanted to, just to back up your imaging locally if you want to do that. So I really want to focus on the fact that the server goes away in the CareStack world. The nightly data backup, remember that's in the cloud, like you brought up earlier, Eric. So
Hmm.
there's no nightly data backup. So that's an important thing to mention in this conversation.
So, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. The patient portal sounds awesome. Is that like, like in Doctor Strange when he opens up that circular portal and you can go into a different world? Um, what is the patient portal exactly?
I don't know if it's as powerful as that. That's pretty cool stuff. The portal is like it meets patients if they're kind of in this. I don't want to stereotype too much, but Gen Z and millennials
Hmm.
like to do a fair amount of self-service, right? They want to control their own destiny. They want to do forms before they come into the dental practice, and frankly, medicine has trained a lot of our patients to use the portal before you come in. I went to see my primary care physician, and I couldn't come in and see her until I did my medical history online. She wouldn't even take me in the office.
Yeah.
And dentistry is going that way more so because patients are asking for it. And
Hmm.
if there's maybe one of the good things to come out of this COVID situation, it's that people are now moving away from the analog world, right? Of doing things on a clipboard. They don't want to touch that pen. They perceive it as being dirty, even though it's probably not, right? And so they want to do these things before they come in, and that's what the portal allows them to do. In a HIPAA compliant function, they can
Hmm.
do their onboarding forms, they can schedule appointments or request appointments depending on your philosophy, and they can make payments. And the beautiful thing, Eric, is your front desk doesn't become the Genius Bar at the Apple Store. You're not taking phone calls. There's no app to download. It's all web optimized. And if they need to reset their password, they don't do it through your office. So
Hmm.
we don't your dental practice has enough going on. You don't need to be answering phone calls like how do I download this app and how do I reset my password? It's very, self-explanatory. So that's the portal in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think COVID has made us all germaphobes because I just got my haircut today at Supercuts and I had to slide my chip in, the card in the terminal, and I had to touch the keys and I had to sign it, and then they dropped my card, and it was just it was gross. I don't want to touch anything. So I think COVID has made us all germaphobes. But like in my office, we don't have a waiting room anymore. It's the curbside, it's the parking lot is our waiting room. So there is no check in and check out process. We have them fill out a COVID questionnaire, and we take them right into the operatory. And there's also no checkout. Once we're done with them, we point to the exit sign and they leave, and everything else is done over the phone or through email or so that sounds like you're really creating an efficient, user friendly, contactless, a lot less touch points with this patient portal. That's great.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So it's really a closed loop system, and that's where the texting to patients is really critical. And so as a dental practice, we don't want you to wait. The last thing we want you to do is say, hey, don't pay at the credit card terminal. We'll send you an invoice. Because our research shows, and not just our research, what we see in the industry is once they leave, it takes 30 to 45 days to even get a $10 payment. So
Hmm.
why do you need to chase your patient AR because of the circumstances. So that's where text to pay comes into play with CareStack. So we can text patients right from within the software. They can make a payment through a HIPAA compliant portal where they don't need to create a username and password. That's the beautiful thing. And the great thing on your end is it posts directly to the ledger. So
Hmm.
it doesn't go into some unapplied credit, kind of bucket somewhere. So that's a really important feature too as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I don't want to take away too much from this interview, but thank you for allowing me to share that.
I couldn't stop looking at that wheel. That was mesmerizing. um, but so that text to pay is really cool. I mean, because to tell you the truth, I I would like to pay. I like to pay either through online, through my phone, or
Sure.
I have a weird sleeping pattern now, and I have little kids, so there's no sleeping in anymore. So I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning. So I'll do a lot of my bill paying then, um, through the computer, or through my phone. Um, and to tell you the truth, I don't even want to talk to people on the phone. I would rather just text, or
Right.
email. So I'd like to do it all through the phone, and through the portal. Also, the amount of staff hours it takes to make all these phone calls right now, we're going through a bit of a dip. We had this big pent up demand when the quarantine was over and we went through all the phases, and we were slammed. And now we're going through a little bit of a dip where we're trying to fill those chairs again. So the amount of staff hours that's going into these phone calls is just chewing up so much time.
Yeah, you're making a great argument for CareStack. I need to bring you into some of my meetings.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's
yeah,
all about helping that practice be more efficient. And we hear from a lot of our clients that just staffing is challenging right now, right? And so the more you can do from anywhere, like you can do this individual might be able to, that's in your office every day could probably work remotely now.
hmm
It's cloud based and do all the scheduling and coordination and not have to be in the practice. So there's that benefit too. Thank you for bringing that up.
yeah. The working remotely too. We had they turned out to be negative, but we had a few staff members that felt ill. They were worried about COVID. They got tested. They had to be out a few days until their testing came back. And if they could have just, hopped online and worked from home, would have been nice. Um, so I wanted to, go back to what I call a dinosaur, and what we have is Dentrix, and I it's like a it takes you can do the same thing, but you can do it in 18 different ways, and you can't just go from A to B in Dentrix. Um, and the reason we ended up getting Dentrix was back in 2012 because we order from Shine, and it was just easier. They were our support, and all our supplies were ordered from them. This is back in 2012, and they hooked us up and just kind of set everything up. We didn't really know any better. They hooked us up with all the hardware, the software, DEXA sensors. They lock you into a contract, and before you know it, you're deep into a heavy loan. Um, but we didn't really know any better, and we just ended up going with Shine because that's who we dealt with as far as our supplies. So and I'm embarrassed to say that was a major step up from what we had before. We had like it looked like Pong from Atari. Like it was a DOS system called Dentec, and there wasn't even a mouse.
Okay.
So from for us to go from that to Dentrix was like you know light years away. So going from Dentrix to a cloud-based all-encompassing platform like CareStack, would that be like another jump of kind of the evolution of dentistry and improvements and that are going on? Would that be another kind of great leap for a practice like mine?
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks for sharing that comment. So CareStack, since it was designed in 2015, it's designed with a modern user experience that looks very commonplace to what people are using right now. And we designed it in mind with we understand that most of our users are like you, Eric, where they come over and they've been using a system like Dentrix for many years. And so we've got to make it simple and easy. We've got to make it applicable for people that have been working in that environment, where what that main software, or maybe EagleSoft is another example. At the same time, we also know that there's a lot of great people in the workforce that may not have a dentistry background. And can we take that person that's great customer service person and put them in a dental field and give them software that's easy to navigate and use, right? So that was really at the heart of designing CareStack. And so I encourage your members to take a no obligation demonstration from CareStack or go to our website to view a recorded session and to see what the user experience looks like themselves, a screenshot, and how it works and operates. But it's going to feel very native to anyone who's using the internet and the web on a daily basis, is the way I would put it. So for example, you could be working on someone's insurance plan and the phone rings and you need to schedule a new patient. You don't lose your work with CareStack. You can do that, schedule that appointment and go right back to where you are without even hitting the refresh button.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of at the heart of CareStack. And what you mentioned is, the reality. I do want to mention something though. We're really trying to be agnostic to whatever imaging technology you're using. So in your example, you're using Dexis. We
Mm-hmm.
bridge to Dexis at no charge. We bridge to CDR. We bridge to CareStream. All these different like on-premise softwares we bridge to. And that's what most people want to do. They just want to remain. Dexis is a really good product. They're happy with it. They want to stay with it. However, we also do work with cloud-based imaging software. So if you have more than one office, or you want to be able to get your images just like you access your patient charts remotely, we can do that as well. So we'll meet you on your journey with imaging wherever you are.
Okay, so if I was a scratch startup office and I was starting with CareStack, then you also have your own um, imaging software that you recommend or that you would set us up with.
Either or, you can go if you have the sensors and you already purchased those and you want us. We don't want to make you change your imaging hardware to meet CareStack on our journey, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
It
The one thing I would
does.
encourage you is if you're opening up a brand new startup, is don't go with the massive server. Talk to your IT person about doing a network storage device as a as a backup for your imaging. You might not even need that. You could just have a piece. You could just have a CPU in your operatories to capture locally and then upload to the cloud. You don't need to have a dedicated server room in every office. I mean, think about how much space that will free up for a dental practice, especially like in downtown Boston or New York City, where real estate's a premium.
We have this enormous server that's probably caked in dust that's underneath one of the desks, and it sounds like a helicopter taking off every time the fan goes on. Um,
Okay.
so the other, yeah, I could go on a rant about Dentrix for about 3 hours, but um, there's like CareStack sounds like it's a lot more intuitive or user friendly, um, whereas in Dentrix there's 100 different ways to do the same thing, and I've had it since 2012, and I was trying to get to a patient's husband's schedule to see if they had scheduled for that implant with me. And I was looking at that screen, like I felt like I was Indiana Jones and I needed that staff where that beam of light, like on the map, shows where the arc is because I
Okay.
couldn't find, and I've used it since 2012. It was like looking for Where's Waldo, and I just had to back out and go into the husband's chart, and I finally found it. But it is not user friendly. It's not that intuitive. In fact, you can tell me how the onboarding is, which I want to get to later on. But when we switched from that DOS system to um, Dentrix, after the first training session, it was like a 6 or 8 hour training session. Some of the staff they were crying. There was two that were holding each other, like we're gonna get through this. We'll figure this out together because they weren't that tech savvy and they were so
Sure.
nervous about the change. What's the user friendliness and what's the onboarding like for the staff once an office does make the switch?
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. So the implementation, we call it an implementation journey with CareStack. And I think that's the biggest, and we need to be candid about this. The biggest reason more people don't switch from what they're doing now is that the fear of making the change, Eric, right? It's a change management. It's not just for you, the owner of the dental practice, it's for the staff members too, as well. And your situation is kind of, you've been on it for about 8 or 9 years. A lot of offices have been on their legacy software for 15 or 20 or longer.
Hmm.
And the software is just okay enough that they don't want to make this change. They'll do anything else in their practice before they change the central nervous system, really, in essence. And so we look at it a couple different ways. We've got to make it, what's different about CareStack, I think, in making the transition is that we want to meet people in their journey. And what I mean by that is adult learning techniques show that a lot of people prefer to do learning on their own time, and they don't want to be necessarily sitting in a classroom for an hour and then taking kind of a progress check or an exam at the end of it, right? They want to do it in bite-sized chunks. And our approach is see, learn, and go do and apply. So a big part of this is CareStack University. It's included with CareStack. There's no extra fee. It's our online learning management system that's designed to meet you on your journey. And so let's say, Eric, I work at Dr. Block's practice at your practice, and my job is I'm just the insurance coordinator. That's all I do. Well, we're going to give that person as little or as much learning as you want them to do. And if it's specific to role based, we'll just give them the insurance pathway. And then we'll give it to them in bite-sized chunks. We'll give them progress checks. We'll ask them to go do it in the actual software. And you as a practice owner will see their progress. What are they doing? Are they logging in? Then in addition to that, you have an implementation manager in Florida who's assigned to your account, who's having weekly meetings with you, who has a dental background and is holding your team accountable. And she or he, they're also doing additional training for you, right? So we're going to have a blended approach. Someone's going to hold you accountable, and then you're going to go do lessons on your own. But it's definitely role based. But I think it's completely fair that we talk about this. That's the big reason why more people are not changing their software is because the change management piece. So thank you for addressing that.
And all that's included, the university and all that training is included.
It is. And one thing I do want to point out, unlike what happened with Shine, and I'm sorry the experience where you're kind of bound by a contract, CareStack is month to month. Your pricing
Mhm.
is guaranteed and is over a fixed period, but you can leave us at any time with 30 days notice. So I like it to be if I get called up from Pawtucket and I'm playing for the Red Sox and I hit 300, then my contract continues, right? If I hit a buck 50, Eric, and I'm dropping the ball in center field, you can send me back to the minors, right? And that gives a practice a lot of peace of mind and flexibility. That's why I make the parallel. I'm trying to use my Boston parallels here. Hope that's okay in the
Yeah, well,
sports world.
I was gonna parallel to the Kenny Rogers song where you can, know when to fold them and know when to walk away. So you're not tied into a year long membership. You're month to month. So that's nice. That
It keeps us honest, right? We got to perform
yeah.
every day. So that's important to us. Um, and then again, you get this nice discount. The implementation fee is a one-time thing on the front end. It includes the data conversion from your existing product. It includes all the implementation activities, CareStack University, and then the other piece is the online support or telephone support in Florida. That's all included. That's a separate line item with a lot of those legacy software companies that you've got to pay for. And we're really proud of the support we offer. So yeah, thank you for giving me a opportunity to speak about that.
What about so let's say I'm a solo practitioner or a multi-specialty practice, or I have multiple locations, or I'm a GP that does endo. Is all of your is this customizable so I can customize certain functionalities? Let's say we're a heavy, like my office, we do a lot of implants. We also have an endodontist and a periodontist that
Sure.
come. But what if I'm in, an endodontic office or a specialty office? Is this something for everyone?
I'm glad you bring that up. I think our the total addressable market for dental software in the entire U.S. is relatively small. There's 70,000 dental practices. I think we do a really solid job with almost every specialty, and I'll talk about the ones that I think we might have a couple of shortcomings because I want your listeners and viewers to really feel good about this. Pedo, perio, endo, general dentistry were very strong, and you could create special care panels that have like explosion codes for frequently used procedure codes, conditions. Like for example, if you're an endodontist and you want to have an apicoectomy on there, you could have the explosion codes that link into that and have the branching logic built into it. Or if you're a pediatric dentist and you have certain codes that you use, like a stainless steel crown, you could have an explosion code for that. And you can customize the software depending on the role, and the clinical notes can be customized. We're really good in that regard.
Mhm.
I don't think we're a home run hit If you're 100% oral surgery, you're probably not a great fit for CareStack. For example, we don't have integrated vital signs monitoring. As an example, there's not a huge market for it, and we found that with oral surgery, there's just um, there's a lot of different perspectives on what a software can offer, and so we really haven't customized it for the oral surgery practice. So that's an
Yeah.
example of one where I don't think we're a great fit. So if I think it's important. I want to create like some trust with your viewers and listeners, and that's probably why we're not a great fit. I hope you're okay with me bringing that up.
Well, I think ortho and oral surgery are like their own, different animals. So they probably have more specific type of software anyway. Um, Now, what about communication? You mentioned the patient portal, communication with patients through their portal. What about communicating with staff, intra-office communication? Do you have a functionality for that?
Yeah, so that's built into CareStack too as well. So we have intra-office communication, whether you're a single location and you want to communicate with other people in the actual practice, or
Mhm.
let's say, Eric, you have 3 or 4 offices under your growing group, you could use that too as well to communicate with other locations. The nice thing is that you keep, just like your iPhone or your Android phone, you can keep a communication thread. So you
Mhm.
can see every time I've interacted with this person, whether it's a patient or it's a team member, what's been said. So like if you have a quick conversation about a patient and it's behind, again, it's inside a CareStack, right? It's HIPAA compliant, but you don't remember exactly what you said, you can go back to that thread if you like. So it's really valuable in that regard.
So can I actually, can my assistant like ping me from the operatory to my office and let me know the patient's in the chair type of thing?
You can, at this point in time, it's just a visual bubble
Hmm.
like you have on your iPhone. It doesn't have an audio chirp. That's something we're working on. So it's important for practices to know that the audio portion is not there yet. But
Okay.
yes, you'll have like a red number will come up like on your iPhone right now, sending you the text message.
Yeah. So I think there's also, actually, I wanted to step back 1 second before I move
Sure.
on. Communicating with specialists or PCPs, like I want to send a specialist an X-ray, or I want to send a pharmacy a prescription, or I
Sure.
want to send a medical clearance to a physician. Can that all be done through the platform?
It can. So the example of the e-prescription, we have an e-prescribe module that's built into CareStack, so you can electronically send prescriptions to pharmacies. And then we have a referral portal that's used to communicate back with specialists. And again, it's HIPAA compliant, so it's not going to send them an email. It's going to send them a link saying, "Hey, Dr. Block has invited you to your free portal as a part of his practice." They create their credentials, and that's where they're going to see notations, imaging, whatever you sent over to that referral partner. So if you're a specialist and you send to a general dentist, you would use that, or if you're a general dentist and you're sending to a specialist, that would be our HIPAA compliant referral portal.
Okay.
Yes. And then the last piece is that there's lab tracking. So
Hmm.
if you have a lab case come out and you want to track and manage your lab cases, there's a part of the software dedicated for that as well.
What about overhead, supplies, tracking? Can you track your overhead?
Not at this point. I'm glad you brought that up. I think I could see that being a future iteration of CareStack,
Hmm.
where there'll be some type of procurement platform integrated in, right? So you can manage your supply cost, you can manage what's in your shelves. And I'm glad you spoke to that. Mum's the word on that. We're working on something, but I don't. Again, if your listeners or viewers are out there, we want them to make a buying decision on software about what's here now, not
Hmm.
what's in the future. So I just want to be really clear because that's a pet peeve that everyone has about software. They sell me something and then I hear it's coming soon. It's not here.
Hmm.
And everything we're talking about today is available now.
What about analyzing certain KPIs and your numbers? Do you have like a dashboard if I want to see, appointment reappointment rate or treatment plan acceptance rate, or certain KPIs that I want to focus on?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We offer, we have prepackaged reports that can be run, and then we have the ability for you to develop your own customized reports and you create the
Hmm.
variables. So, for example, let's say you have a couple associates and you want to do an income allocation report, but you want to see it based on, the UCR versus production, right?
Hmm.
You have the ability to do all those reports, and you can build anything. You can customize it. The great thing about CareStack is it's one solution. So we capture all these different data points that you can build into different reporting tools that you want to need, whether you're a single location practice or you're an enterprise with 50 offices, you can do it across the whole group.
Now, how does it work with, so we have 9 operatories in the office. And I think with Dentrix, we pay per workstation. I think we have about 16 workstations. How does it work with CareStack?
Yeah. So the key thing with CareStack is, I think, number one, if you're someone that uses Dentrix or EagleSoft and you have 2 or 3 subscriptions stacked up on top of it, I think, Eric, we're probably going to offer like a 30 to 35% cost savings. To be candid with you, that's what we're seeing in the marketplace. We don't base on the number of providers. We don't charge by workstations. We don't charge by, part-time dentists. That's a big thing, or part-time hygienists. We really look at 2 factors. How many locations do you have total? And how many operatories do you have total? That's really the key indicator for how much data you're going to consume with CareStack. So that's kind of our model of pricing. Is we don't want to penalize you for having variability in your business in terms of, staff members coming or going and seats or workstations. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, so we have 9 ops in our office, whereas we're one office location, so it'd be 9 operatories times your that must be it. So another question I had for you is patient engagement. Nowadays people want engagement, especially millennials. They want now, the instant gratification, the social media.
Sure.
They're scrolling through Facebook. Can you engage with your patients? Like send them, some email or newsletter, or like we have some, bleaching special going on. Is that done through their portal, or is that like another functionality that you have?
Yes, there's another functionality we have that's included, and the engagement is done in whatever medium you want it to be. So, email, you can bring in any templates that you want to bring in. We're not a marketing agency. We don't pretend to be one. So you can bring in your own creative. You can bring in your own HTML, or you can design like you're doing in Microsoft Word inside of CareStack. The nice thing is you could add tokens. So a token would be, I want to grab the patient's first name from the record. I want to grab their next appointment. You have all the ability to customize those promotions. And then more importantly, since we're data driven, Eric, let's say we're doing bleaching and we just want to go to a patient subset that's between 30 and 50. And we want to say that they've been in once in the last year and they have ABC insurance, or whatever it might be. You can get as granular as you want in your campaigns, so that you're not broadcasting it out to everybody. An example would be, maybe you're doing an Invisalign promotion, but you don't want, people in their 70s to get it and call you and be like, why am I getting this thing on orthodontics, right?
Right.
You can customize it to whatever audience you want it to be. And then you can give them the medium that they want it. So we can also support text messaging, and that's included. So up to 160 characters in text messaging. So you can do promotions that take someone to a web page if you want them to see and learn more, or a YouTube video that you've done. Hey, we're doing Full Arch as part of our value proposition at Dr. Block's office. Learn more, click on this link, and takes them to a YouTube page or a Vimeo link. So you have the ability to do that. So the answer is yes. And we want to meet your patients where they are on their journey with technology.
Now you mentioned the word insurance. Now, do you have functionality for insurance with like a clearinghouse or claims or verification, or can the patient go in their portal and view their benefits? What type of functionality do you have for that?
So the insurance process is embedded. The claims and insurance verification process is included with CareStack. And we have 2 different clearinghouses that are integrated into CareStack: Change Healthcare and Dental Exchange. And claims are electronic and are unlimited. They're included in the price. And so I will tell you that eligibility can be verified electronically by clicking a button, but we're at the mercy of the insurance companies, Eric. Like, some of them are really good and give you granular detail down to the limitations and exclusions, right? Others just say, yeah, this patient has insurance. So that's kind of, the challenge in the insurance landscape. Hopefully it evolves, and, maybe it's a year or 18 months down the road, and we're from everyone, we're getting really good data back. But that's with any software company, that's always going to be the challenge of doing electronic verification and eligibility, is that you're going to have that limitation. Now we do have a second service from CareStack, where outside of that we can manage your eligibility and verification process with our people in Florida and our
Hmm.
people in India. So we're working 24 hours, 6 days a week. That's an optional service, but that's the
Hmm.
beauty of being cloud-based, is we can be in your software with your permissions, verifying your patients for you. A lot of offices can't find the staffing to do that now as they reopened. And so that's something that we've, really expanded upon. I hope that speaks to your initial question.
Yeah, it's such a headache with dealing with insurance verification, but I think it really comes down to educating the patient and getting the staff on board, and being insurance savvy but not insurance driven. To educate that patient that, look, this is your insurance, these are your benefits, and put more of the responsibility on them is, I think,
Definitely.
one way that you can try to relieve some of that. Talk about pain point. That's a pain point. Um, so I wanted to talk about, you mentioned the staff onboarding. Um, is the biggest fear the transfer of data when you switch to, let's say, from a Dentrix to a CareStack? Am I going to lose, some unscheduled treatment plan, or um, you know, decline treatment that we had, or notes, or anything in our journal or ledger? Is that the biggest hesitation for offices, or is it the change, or doing something new, the getting everyone on board that we're changing this practice management software, which is, like you said, the central nervous system of the office. It's what we look at every day. We look at that schedule and we're so used to it, and some people fear change. Is that the biggest hesitation?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Definitely, the fear of change is a significant one, right? It's like it's bringing upheaval into the office. I can, we're doing Dentrix conversions. We've done hundreds of them. And if you give me the rights, I'll share my screen again just to show you. Oh, I can do it, I think. Hold on a second. This is kind of a document of what comes over, and from a G6 conversion, everything that comes over from Dentrix. But more importantly, Eric, what doesn't come over? Let's be open about that. So we're not going to bring over open claims. We
Mm-hmm.
can't bring over the patient photo. We can't bring over like your questionnaire as an example. We can create a new medical questionnaire, or you can use ours. But this is everything that's going to come over: insurance
Mm-hmm.
codes, charts, fee schedule assignments. We can bring over migrated balances if we need to, the perio and dental charting. So this part usually addresses the fears and kind of assuages their concerns, but it's definitely the latter. It's the fear of like the unknown.
Yeah.
How's my staff going to react to it? So my advice is, for any practice that's considering this, make sure that the staff team is involved and feels like they
Yeah.
want to own this. Because if not, in my experience, someone will sabotage it.
Mm-hmm.
They won't want it to go through.
What's the process like of the data transfer? How long does that take?
That really takes, that's doing the data transfer itself probably takes 5 or 6 days once we have access to your server. It's not really a significant part of the process. The long pole in the tent is the training that we need to do with the staff to get them comfortable with making the switch, and then the training that happens, because we're not closing down your practice. You're going to be running on your software, and you're going to be training and learning CareStack in parallel. And then we're going to sunset the software, let's say on a Thursday night. And then on Friday or Monday, whatever the day would be, we go live with CareStack.
Mm-hmm.
And we're there to hold your hands. Prior to COVID, we might be on site. Now no one wants us on site, so we're doing that remotely, and that's totally
Right.
fine. But that's kind of the process of going from I want to do this to going live.
Well, I think that I'm going to start to wrap this up with
Sure.
the mental health of dentists. Something like this could be exciting for a dentist, and you know, in dentistry, we're in our own little bubble, and we're, some of us are isolated, and we're doing the same old thing over and over and over again, and it could create burnout. It's a tough profession that is stressful physically and mentally. But there's a few things along the way that gets you kind of re-energized and excited. Like we switched from that was kind of our Corona shutdown switches. We ended up picking up a digital scanner instead of taking traditional polyvinyl impressions. And I go into work excited to do crowns because it's fun.
That's awesome.
I can't imagine going back to traditional film X-ray. Digital film digital X-rays was a major change, and it was scary for the staff.
That's right.
But looking back on it now, we couldn't imagine going back to film. Or we had that, like I said, that old DOS system, which was embarrassing. And the staff was, like I said, they were crying and holding each other when we switched to Dentrix because of, the fear. But if it's something that's going to make your practice more efficient, if it excites you to go to work and makes you happy, as dentists, I think that's so important to, kind of reinvent yourself. And if this is, one of those things that going from like a old dinosaur like Dentrix that, like I have to look at that screen and it's like reading the Torah to try to figure out how to, look in, the patient's file, then you should do it because it may make you happy, and it may look, you may look forward to going to work every day. And I think that's a big thing in dentistry. So I wanted to thank you so much for joining us. Oh, and nowadays I always ask 3 questions.
Sure.
How is life post COVID? How does it differ? The sole practitioner versus the DSO. But one of my third questions I like to ask is, can this detect crazy patients? Is there any way that it can, because I seem to get a lot of crazy patients in the office. I was just wondering if it had some like kind of radar where it could.
Maybe you could build that into the patient portal with a
a
good questionnaire, right? Good form.
There's got to be a mental questionnaire.
That's
All
right.
So again, we're joined by Jim Gerson of CareStack. CareStack's an all-in-one practice management solution, a cloud-based unified suite of dental practice management solutions for the growing practice. Go to Deals for Dentists and target CareStack's promo, which is get 20% off your implementation fees, a free subscription for the first month, and no long-term contracts. So that's pretty cool. So any last nuggets or words of wisdom for those young dentists out there?
I would just, mention to you, be the biggest advocate you can for your practice and challenge the conventional norms with technology, knowing that this marketplace is shifting and dentistry tends to be a little bit behind the other specialties out there, right? So, and I would just have these conversations with the people that you trust in the IT space. Yeah, and Eric, thank you so much for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
And I just wanted to end on, and get your staff on board, like you said, because when I became a partner in my office, I shot in there like a bat out of hell, and I started to do all these changes, and some of the staff was not on board. So if you're doing a major, upgrade like this, get your staff on board. It'll make you much happier and a lot less stress. So,
well put.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Let's be in touch and see what's on the horizon for CareStack maybe in the next 6 months or year or so. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. Take care.